Hello and welcome to another episode of the 8-Bit Debaters podcast. My name is Paddy, and this week our lovely bards are going to be deciding what was the worst Legend of Zelda game of all time. I bet Dylan's going to go for 3 weeks, Dylan, for Ocarina of Time. We will see.
You got it.
And also, before we do that, we're also going to do a little icebreaker of our favorite game of the year so far. So we're going to get straight into that, to the icebreaker.
The icebreaker.
So this is the part of the show where we get to know each other a little bit better, and you get to know us a little bit better. And we always ask a little question at the start of the show. Rob, hello.
Hello.
How you doing, mate?
Oh, I am very jolly.
So,
how about yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Oh.
So our question for today is, what has been your favourite game of 2018 so far?
Well, the best game that I've bought that's come out this year is probably going to have to be Yakuza 6, A Song of Life. Probably not as good as Yakuza 0, which was the game that got me into the series that I picked up earlier on in the year. But I only picked up Yakuza 0 about a month or two before Yakuza 6 come out, so I hammered all the way through them. Yakuza 6 does loads of really good things. It's got some really good sub-stories. The fighting slightly better than Yakuza 0. The story's actually really, really well told. It is a fun world, and it's the final send-off for the main protagonist, Akiru Kazuma, and that is really well done. And yeah, I was really impressed.
Brilliant, thank you, Rob. Alistair, hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm alright, just plugging along, as you do.
Nice and upbeat for everybody at home. Alistair, what has been the favourite game that you played so far? This is going to be interesting, everybody. Alistair, famous for not buying games.
It wasn't a difficult choice, and not because there was a standout game, because I bought I think 2 or 3 maximum that have been brought out in 2018, and this one is A Way Out.
Oh,
So that's the one that made it. I think that's the one on the list that topped it all. It was a brilliant game. I thoroughly enjoyed my playthrough. You can find it on YouTube.com. That's just about gaming. I streamed the entire thing.
You streamed the whole thing with Rob. It was brilliant. It was
and
brutal.
I really
beautiful.
enjoyed it. And yeah, I think it's definitely up there as one of my favourite games. And I think it just the fact that I didn't have much in 2018.
it is the crowning jewel of EA, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Al. Dylan, hello.
Hello.
How you doing? You all right?
Doing all right, yeah. Doing all right.
Good. Everyone's doing all right. This is great.
It's an all right week.
It's an all right week. Dylan, what is your favorite game so far this year?
So far, hopefully this counts, but the demo for Octopath Traveller has got me.
If that's the best thing you played this year, why not?
It actually is. Honorable mention, maybe Sea of Thieves, but Octopath Traveller, just that demo alone is so much fun, and I'm definitely going to be buying that day one. So,
nice.
Yeah, we did a Sea of Thieves as well. It lasted for a few weekends, and then we kind of went,
right,
yeah, we're over it.
Yeah, I think we had one massive bundle of fun with it, and then kind of just petered out.
Right.
We get it now. Yeah, that sort of thing.
It had its time. So for me, it's going to be God of War. On PS, that was so good, guys. It's so good. Just brilliant. What a fantastic video game that is. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for sharing. I really appreciated that. I hope we all feel a little bit closer together. That's what it's all about. So now that we've got the niceties out of the way, it's time to get into the serious business with the masturbate.
The masturbate.
So this is the part of the show where we basically like to set our buds loose upon each other and have a fight. And this week the question is, what was the worst Legend of Zelda game of all time? Now, a little disclaimer. Obviously, we're not going to include any of the Zelda CDI games because they're all trash. Trash.
And we all know what those
easy
are.
arguments.
We don't want no trash. Yeah, easy arguments, and we don't allow easy arguments on this show. So the way this works is essentially all our bards are going to have a little pitch. They're going to say their piece about what they think is their worst Legend of Zelda game. Then after they've done that, we are going to set them loose upon each other. So I think I'm going to start with Alistair. What is the worst Legend of Zelda game of all time of this beloved franchise? Which one is the worst?
There's only one standout answer, really, and it's got to be the Triforce Heroes. What?
Controversial.
It wasn't that great a Zelda game. They tried something a little bit different, which they tried to make it like more of a multiplayer Zelda game. I think you travelled around and like you could play in the single player, but that was absolutely terrible. You had to go around in like a pack of 3 heroes essentially to solve puzzles and save the day. So it revolved around the multiplayer aspect. Yet it's Nintendo. So when you try and go online and you try and go Nintendo, it's not going to work, is it? They're only just trying to get their act together now, and this was way before now. It flopped. I mean, not that the game didn't flop, but the multiplayer aspect flopped. The single player there was a lot left to be desired. It just didn't live up to anything, and I mean, the story wasn't even that interesting because it wasn't even a part of the main Zelda franchise. It was a spin-off, so you can't rest that as a great game. I mean, it just lacked in every single aspect at all. And I mean, there was no system built into the game to allow communication within players. There was a lot of issues with lag and people just being dropped off. And so the game, if one of your 3 like online partners dropped off, then the game, that was it. You were kicked out of the game. All your progress was lost. So you could like spend 15, 20 minutes on a level, and if someone dropped out, gone. It was over.
It broke. It broke. Okay, I get it. I get it. Thank you very much.
Very bad, Paddy.
Thank you. Well, thank you for. I don't like these negative ones. Bring me down. Rob, what is the worst Legend of Zelda game?
The worst Legend of Zelda game has clearly got to be Zelda 2: Adventures of Link. The second game to come out I don't know if it was the second. I don't know if there's a handheld between the NES version or not. But yeah, it was the second main console game. It's one that flicked between a 2D world and like and 2D platforming, side-scrolling platforming. The platforming was really balls hard, not very fun, really unforgiving. It didn't have any puzzles. It was a main Zelda game with nothing Zelda-like to it. And obviously, it was obviously they looked at the first Zelda game and thought, oh, what can we do to try and evolve the formula? This is then they brought out Zelda 2, and that's the way they thought that it should go. And then obviously at some point they had a rethink and gone, actually, there's a lot of things that were in the first game that were much more fun, and that's why when they come to sort of what is probably most people's a definitive 2D Zelda, A Link to the Past, that leans a lot more on Zelda 1 than what does Zelda 2. And it's Zelda 2 is kind of like Super Mario Brothers 2. It's one of those ones that people know is there but don't really regard it as a proper a Zelda game. So yeah, I'm going with Zelda 2: Adventures of Link.
Thank you, Rob. And Dylan, what is the worst Zelda game?
The worst Zelda game is Link's crossbow training on the Nintendo Wii. This is literally like if someone took the most awful mini game from a Mario Party and tried to sell it as a standalone game. Not even DLC. It's literally a standalone game. And they even tried to pack it in with a peripheral called the Wii Zapper, which according to IGN on Wikipedia here says it actually made the game worse, made the game like harder to play with something that's meant to be, it's like in the shape of like a crossbow. It's like if you made a WWE game, but the whole game is just the wrestlers working out at the gym. It's
I'd buy that.
Sounds hot.
Or just like a golf game where you're just at the driving range. You're not even playing a game of golf. You literally take a small thing of what makes a Zelda game a game and try to sell it as a standalone game. It's like if Doom was just the Marine guy going through boot camp. He's not even on Mars yet and fighting demons. It's literally the lowest common denominator. It's the smallest thing of a Zelda game trying to pass is a full-fledged game.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for those 3 excellent pitches. Now I'm in a kind of happy space right now because I have not played any of these games, which means this will be purely on the strengths and weaknesses of the arguments that are given by you guys. And once I've had enough of your little tiff, I'm just going to say so. I'm going to say halt, and you guys are going to stop because you have to, because the show has to end at some point. We got to go to bed.
Not if I can help it.
None of you can help it. Right, so guys,
yeah,
fight.
Well, let's start by I'm going to smash into Dylan because Link's crossbow training was absolutely amazing. I love Link's crossbow training. I loved it. I know it wasn't so well received, but I picked it up, and I only picked it up for a £5, and I had the peripheral. It didn't have any problems with me, and I had a great time. I had 2 hours. And the interesting thing about Link's crossbow training, which a lot of people not will realise, is Shigeru Miyamoto really wanted Link in Twilight Princess to have a machine gun of some kind, and after a lot of a negotiation, a lot of sort of meetings taking place, they eventually allowed him to make Link's crossbow training, so he could realise his dream by giving Link a gun. That's why it was auto loading. It's something that he wanted to put into Twilight Princess. They didn't feel like it fit inside the game world of Twilight Princess, so they told him, "Yeah, go on." Friend. They literally just told him, "Go and make it. We don't care if it makes money. We don't care. It's you are so important to us. You can make your little Link's crossbow training and go nuts with it, and we'll put it out there." And I think for that reason alone, that makes it brilliant. I think by the fact that it was his little thing that he worked on, his little project, he said, "No, I want this in my game," and he worked on it so hard, he actually made it as a little standalone game.
Yeah, it was actually a well put together game that worked like fluently, and I think most people, the only reason they disliked it was it was too short. People were like, "This is far too short," and then some people
about an hour long, or if you wanted to get all the plats, it was about 2 hours long. And the main complaint was too short. It was fun. I don't really see what the problem is.
It told 2.75 million copies. That is a hell of a lot for a shit game.
Shigeru Miyamoto is a genius. I don't care what anyone says.
Triforce Heroes, just to compare it, sold 1.14 million copies. So this terrible game doubled the sales.
When I got my Switch, I got 1-2 Switch, which, believe me, is a shitty game.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And let me tell you, in Link's crossbow training, at least that game had 30 mini games. Link's crossbow training is one mini game.
Yeah,
trying to pass off.
It's well put together. I mean, it's really
so is some of 1-2 Switch. So is some of the quick draw.
It has that
great.
nostalgic arcade value to it. So if you go down, you play in the arcade, you sort of do the shooty thing with the guns, you get the high score. And it's a brilliant time. You get your friends around, go nuts.
Yeah,
I don't know. Play Call of Duty, play Doom, play anything.
Play Link's crossbow. Honestly, if someone said to me, "Do you want to come over and play some Link's crossbow training?" I would be there. I'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'm down with that." If someone said to you, "Oh, do you want to come over and play some FIFA?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'm alright."
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to read all my notes. I went nuts on this one.
Oh man!
First of all, I think this is the first time where we've had to argue that someone else's game is better.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's nice little, switch on the head. But I loved a crossbow trainer. I don't think there's
the fact that the Zapper made it worse almost made the game better because you don't need the random chunk of plastic to play it.
Yeah.
If that doesn't come with it, or that's broken,
use the analog.
Yeah, you can use it just as well on the analog, and it's a. I mean, it's not a Zelda game, but it's a
you
great
could use the
game.
Wii. You could use. I mean, I just played it on the Wii remote, mostly as well, and that was absolutely. I mean, everyone's got their issues with the Wii, but you can't say the tracking on the screen was awful. It was good enough to click on things, and it didn't have the hardest. I mean, if you want to get all the platinums, that took you 2 hours and you're done.
This game also isn't. It's not bad to a level of kitsch where it's enjoyable. It's not like so bad that it's enjoyable. This is literally a mini game being passed off as a full-fledged game.
But,
I don't think it was ever passed off as a full-fledged game.
They made it a bit more than a mini game because you had varying different fire types of the arrows, and I mean, you had different sort of mechanics you can move around. So it transcended a bit from the mini game aspect, and they tried to make it into a bit more of a game. You still have different levels. You've shot bad guys and bosses. So I mean, it went past that factor, and the only issue, the two only issues that I found, and I scoured many reviews trying to find what people found wrong with this game, and it was the Zapper was a bit useless. People just preferred just the normal nunchuck to use, and the game was too short. Two things that can just be completely disavowed. It was a good game overall. People loved it. So I will move on to Rob's because I think we have given crossbow training the love it needs.
Yeah.
I mean, this game has been well received and was loved by a lot of people. And the only reason
games were well received in the 80s. You look at scores that that games were given in the 80s,
I'm pretty
all
sure,
of them are like
Nitro,
10 and
Mark,
9s. You
Marky Mark game,
can't be saying
I think they've got low.
Metacritic versus here and there is work. If you look what actually people thought, I mean, people didn't know what the Zelda game was when Zelda 2 came out.
With Zelda 2, that was the issue. A lot of people didn't like it because it was a different style from the Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, they were used to the top-down, top-down 2D, or 2D, 3D players.
Exactly.
And then this one went for a bit of a side-scrolling platform with a bit more RPG elements. And I mean, you know what that sounds like? It sounds like they just went for a bit of a side-scrolling Breath of the Wild. They were paving the way for that bad boy to be there in the future.
I'll tell you what the key point here is. My game is something that Nintendo tried to move a Zelda forward that didn't work, or tried to do something new, an experimental Zelda that they tried to move forward with and tried to work.
They still made it a
at
good
least
game.
With Triforce Heroes, that experiment they did with Triforce Heroes actually worked.
No, because
that was a really good free-player game.
The main element that they based this new experiment around, which is the multiplayer aspect, was horribly done. It's like we all know the Nintendo.
What do you mean? What do you mean horribly done?
Well, I
played it and I didn't have any problems.
There've been huge complaints about the online connectivity of the actual game, the lagging issues, the number of times a partner would get dropped, the matchmaking systems. I mean, all of those have been brought up time and time again on different forums, different reviews as the main issue with the game. And for a game that bases itself on multiplayer aspect and playing with other people, playing with friends, they didn't have any sort of communication system involved. You had to use an outside
if you go
source like
trawling
Discord or Skype.
the subreddit of any online game,
yeah.
what you'll find
It's
is
a lot of
people
crap.
complaining they can't connect to the service. You can't say by the fact that people can't connect to servers means that I can't remember from any of the general media, the general higher press of Triforce Heroes having a huge issue with online connectivity. I played it with my brothers. We went through it. We had a really good time. We didn't actually get all the way through it because, but due to the fact that one person wouldn't carry on playing because he had a life to get on. But I tell you what, if I had 3 kids, which if I had 3 kids, I would have bought them three DSs each that they can all sit there and play on. Triforce Heroes would be a game that I would get them all to play. The puzzles they did in that game was so brilliant in the sense of like trying to reform the 2D Zelda puzzle formula and make it work as 3 different players with all different player agency was something that should be a lot applauded. It was an experiment that Nintendo tried, and it worked. It was a tight 3-player, a co-op Zelda experience. It brought something new to the Zelda franchise. Whereas mine, it tried to bring something new, it failed, and it rolled back on that.
Yeah, like I'll pick up. I think that one of the first points you said was that it didn't. Like I was, if you trawled all the forums, you would find people complaining about connection issues. Like it wasn't even just trolling all the forums. Scrolling. I can't even remember if I said it right. Like it was literally the top reviews of IGN, GameSpot, Metacritic, and many people in the forums. It wasn't just the odd person saying connectivity issue. Because doing the research for these things, I go through many forums where people complain about everything. You wouldn't believe the shit Witcher 3 got when I researched it.
Everything.
But like this was the main problem constantly brought up by people who put it not as a sometimes we were dropped. It was the main complaint for a lot of people, and it's what for many people ruined the experience in the game.
I played it a couple of years after a release, like it was only about a year or so afterwards, so I don't know whether it got patched or fixed, but I personally never experienced any problems. I saw it as a fantastic evolution from what was a Link Between Worlds that came out a few years before. It's basically a multiplayer version of A Link Between Worlds, and from my memory, I had a great time.
Rob, so one question from the bench. Were you playing online or like local co-op?
I was playing online.
Online co-op, okay.
Online, yeah. My brothers live in Ipswich, so I don't live nearby, and we played it all. I borrowed my sister's a 3DS. It was good.
Carry on.
One of the big issues came out with Triforce Heroes as well was if you weren't playing multiplayer, you had the option to play single player and just swap between the 3 heroes that were involved, and you had a few NPCs that kind of like aided you in your journey. It was just that they didn't really make the game for that aspect either. It was a bit junky. the whole aspect of when you were a single player trying to do these 3-player puzzles didn't really work. So they made it a multiplayer game with the Nintendo online capabilities, which, I mean, like it's got a very checkered history of issues. And then the single player, like it was like they barely put thought into it.
You're trying to pin like the whole crux of the argument of it being a bad Zelda on Nintendo's online service.
They,
you know,
are you
going to say
to be an online Zelda? Like, and if the main
well, no,
aspect
because
of an online Zelda is online,
because you can play it because you can play it you could play it a local though, and that would have had no problems with a lag or a dropouts or anything.
Yeah, it sounds like with both of these games you do a lot more than just shoot shit with a crossbow.
Yeah.
Apparently not with mine. You just like stare at a screen saying you'd be disconnected.
I'd argue probably in Zelda 2 you'd do marginally, maybe a little bit more. There's a jump and there's a walk forward and walk back and a slash, and then there's walking around the overworld, which looks horrible and is plain and really blocky and doesn't look as good as the original.
Zelda 2 brought the RPG element into the Zelda frame, and I think people just didn't react well to the side-scrolling RPG style, which isn't the game itself.
They reacted well to the
like
RP side, but they reacted badly to the side scrolling, how hard it was, how far away it was from the first one. And the thing is, we've got to bear in mind, like this argument, is Zelda 2 is a mainline Zelda title. Used to are trying to argue 2 Zelda spin-offs as being the worst Zelda title, which you know, spin-offs, you got to know what to expect. They're fun little things that you do that fill in the time, but with the long time that is there between each mainline Zelda title.
With a franchise 5 or 6 years, with a franchise like Zelda, you have a reputation and a name to uphold. So even the spin-offs, they have to be held to that same standard the mainline is.
Triforce of Heroes was, Triforce Heroes was a good game. You can't fault the game by the fact that Nintendo have a poor online service.
And when the game revolves around it ruined it.
And what really is mainline, right? This is why I lost the debate last time, because the whole Zelda timeline's bullshit. That means anything goes. Hyrule Warriors, Crossbow, I don't know, anyone with pointy ears and a green hat.
I suppose I'm not talking from the timeline point of view. I'm talking from the more game. You know, we are a publisher. We're putting out more games. This is our main Zelda title. This is a main title. This is a spin-off title. Like they did one quite similar to Triforce Adventure called Four Swords Heroes, which was really good. That came out in the late 90s. I really enjoyed that. And Triforce Heroes is just an evolution of that. And I think they did that really well. And I think there's a lot of clever. Actually, Al, here's a question for you. Have you played it?
Good question. No.
No, how can you say it's the worst? It's another argument again. It's a moot point. Because you can't say it's worse when you just glean ideas from it and say it's a bad...
Then I wouldn't have an answer at all for this is question. I mean, my answers would then have to go between Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. That would have been it. I can't pick any of those games, so I had to do my research and find a game that was bad and sort of had legitimate complaints.
You've gleaned like what generally people had issues with the game, but you can't talk from from the same aspect as someone who's had first-hand experience with the game, who had a great time with it, and actually it was really fun. If any of us had a chance to play a Zelda co-op experience with people that they had time to play it with, they would have had a great time. And if you had the chance to play that, you would have had a great time. That's what you want with a video game. Yes, it had its issues. It had its issues with online, and yeah, you pretty much had to have 3 friends to play it. But that's true with like, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
like Grand Theft Auto is more fun with friends.
I started actually going out that game until I started playing it with you guys. When I actually had people to go in and play, I picked it up, played the single player, and just left it because like the matchmaking and all that made the game almost unplayable for me. I couldn't do anything. It was dull. I would agree with you that Triforce Heroes would have been a bad game if they hadn't brought out Link Between Worlds the year prior, which was pretty much the single-player version of Triforce Heroes. So if you wanted that single-player, playthrough of that 2D style Zelda, and you didn't have the 2-3 friends to go and play with, then go and buy Link Between Worlds. Triforce Heroes was made as a little piece that people can who real hardcore fans who have got groups of friends who all play a Zelda can play a Zelda game all at the same time.
and that worked. Anyway, I think that point has been made.
See, this is where you play the games.
Question from the bench.
Yeah.
For everyone. Rob, what is the absolute best thing about your game?
It's got a really good theme song from one of the temples. You know, do 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 do. That's about it. That tune rocks my socks.
Is that a temple / dungeon style thing, or?
Yeah, it's like a dungeon style theme that's in it. That is the only reason why I would play on that game.
Okay. Dylan, what is the best thing about Link's crossbow training?
I would say that you can die.
It's very compelling. That is very compelling. Al, how about you? What is the best thing about your game?
Some well put together puzzles. Well, gentlemen, this is extremely difficult in that this is a tough one. I mean, Al, like, obviously I know you were drafted in late for this one. And I mean, I wouldn't have had any more or less preparation.
Given the short end.
Should have chose Skyward Sword.
I don't know that game either. I know 3 Zeldas and they're all brilliant.
Given the short end of the stick for that one. I mean, you know, and like, yeah, Rob had a good experience with it. Obviously people didn't have that good an experience of it. Like, you know, that's really difficult to judge either way, because obviously people's experiences are different. I mean, you know, Rob, what I will say, I think it was mentioned, like, you know, we're talking about mainline Zelda games, like yours does sound like it had the dungeons and the puzzles and the stuff that you sort of
it didn't have puzzles, and the dungeons were just
no puzzles. You know what it had absolutely nothing was Link's crossbow training. I watched a video.
It had a whale of a good time.
I watched a video where you guys were talking about it, and I was like, "This is a Zelda game." I'm just stalling for time here. This is really tough because, you know, in their own ways, I suppose they all have their own issues. I mean, you know, if I was like, if I knew nothing about anything and I picked up and I opened if I knew a little bit about Legend of Zelda and I picked up one of these games, I think Link's crossbow training is probably the one that's got the least fucking anything to do with Zelda. But just purely on the basis that nobody really had anything to complain about for Zelda 2, I think that's going to go to Rob. Just purely from the fact that, you know, maybe because it's obscure, like in terms of like older, I mean, not obscure, but because it's a little bit older, but, you know, missing key fundamental things, direct game in the timeline, that does sound like the worst based on what was said. So giving it to Rob, but really Link's crossbow training. Because it's literally just running around.
It's hard to argue against Link's crossbow training, but I you know what, I did have a good time when I was playing it.
Yeah. I mean,
short experience.
If it wasn't for the fact that Zelda 2 wasn't like an actual mainline, you know, proper like, it would have been Link's crossbow training, I think, because I was watching a video and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But thank you very much, guys. That was a very, very hard fought debate. Well done, everybody. Alistair, you brave little boy, you've done it again.
I was an uphill battle. I never play any of my games. You should know this by now, Rob.
I think you fought that really hard, though, man. I was well impressed.
Much of the internet.
Your spirit always makes up for it. Well, thank you very much for watching another episode or listening to another episode of the 8-Bit Debaters podcast. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you agree that is the worst Zelda game ever. If it is, if you have another one, put it down in the comments. Shout at us on the internet. Do whatever you want. It's freedom, bro. If you like this, you can find more of our videos at youtube.com/twistedbygaming, where we have more 8-Bit Debaters podcasts, other YouTube shows that you can check out. And if you like this, then please subscribe and share it with your friends. That would mean a lot to us. We are only a small channel. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and guys, thank you very much for being beautiful, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.